Breaking news in the Jeffrey Epstein controversy. A federal judge has just rejected the Trump administration's request to make grand jury documents in the case public. The judge had this to say in his ruling, quote, "The information contained in the Epstein grand jury transcripts pales in comparison to the Epstein investigation information and materials in the hand of the Department of Justice." We have CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams with us now. Quite a response from the judge there, Elliot.
It is quite a response, and he even uses the language I thought you were going to quote, Brianna, is where he says that the Justice Department has a substantial investigative trove in their possession.
The Justice Department has now released a big new batch of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and these include new details about Epstein's one-time friendship with President Trump. Look, there is a lot to go through. We said it's like more than 10,000 pages, so we are digging through this. But this is what is seen so far. In a 2020 email, an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York wrote that Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet, quote, more times than previously has been reported.
Federal Judge Beryl Howell has ordered the release of explosive files related to the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. These documents include bank records from Deutsche Bank and flight logs that show a clear connection to Trump. When this news broke, Trump was giving a live speech from the Oval Office. He suddenly stopped talking and froze for 27 seconds. He just stood there in total silence on live television. This reaction is very telling. It looks like someone realizing their secrets are finally coming out. The documents show that Trump took 7 trips on Epstein's private plane between 1,993 and 1,997. Trump has said for years that he was never on that plane and barely knew Epstein. These flight logs prove that was not true. There are also 202 emails that show the two men were much closer than Trump admitted. They discussed business deals, social events, and travel. These emails show they were business partners and close friends for a long time. The bank records are even more serious. They show $330 million in suspicious money transfers. Specifically, there were $48 million in consulting fees sent from Russian sources to Trump's accounts. There is no clear reason why Trump would receive that much money for consulting in Russia at that time. It looks like a way to move money through illicit narcotics networks or other hidden channels. Deutsche Bank played a big role in this. Their own systems flagged over 2,000 transactions in Trump's accounts as suspicious. Even with all those red flags, the bank still gave him over $2 billion in loans. They used property values that were way too high to justify the loans. This looks like a massive plan to hide the truth about where money was coming from and going. Judge Beryl Howell stated that these documents prove the president tried to block the investigation. This is called obstruction of justice. Trump used his power to try to keep the flight logs and bank records secret. Because of this, the judge has sent the evidence to the committee in charge of impeachment. The judge is stating that these actions are high crimes. The White House says these documents are fake or part of an old political attack. However, the documents are official government records. Some of them even have the signature of Kash Patel, a former government official. If the documents were fake, it would mean the people involved in the investigation created false evidence. But since they are official records, unsealed by a judge, they are considered real. This is all happening at the worst possible time for Trump. He is already facing a massive $54 million payment deadline, and the IRS is looking into $500 million in hidden income. Everything is falling apart at once. His staff is panicking, and his political friends are starting to leave him. Republicans in Congress are very worried. It is very hard to defend a president who took 7 flights on that specific plane. The connection to the Epstein network is seen as something voters will never forgive. Many senators who were supporting him might now change their minds. They don't want to be tied to these scandals when the next election happens. Elliot Williams, a legal analyst, notes that the Justice Department has a massive amount of evidence in its possession. This evidence connects financial crimes, foreign money, and the Epstein network into one big story. It shows that the president wasn't just a friend of Epstein, but was part of a group that used secret connections to move money and avoid the law. The 27-second freeze on camera is being seen as a moment of pure fear. It shows someone who knows the truth is finally out. The House of Representatives is expected to move very quickly toward an impeachment vote. They have the logs, the emails, and the bank records they need. This looks like the end of a long effort to keep these secrets hidden. This situation is a perfect example of how the past eventually catches up to the present. For years, the public only heard rumors about these connections. By unsealing these documents, the court has turned rumors into evidence. The most important part of this isn't just the friendship, it is the money. When $48 million moves from foreign sources into a businessman's pocket without a clear reason, it creates a massive legal problem. It suggests that the relationship was about more than just social parties. It was about a network used to move wealth away from the eyes of the law. The freeze that happened on television is a huge deal for public perception. In politics, how you look is often as important as what you say. When a leader goes silent like that, it sends a message of weakness or guilt to the audience. It makes people feel like the leader has lost control of the situation. This moment will likely be remembered more than any of the specific numbers in the bank records, because it is a visual proof of the pressure he is under. If we look back at history, we can see similarities to the Watergate scandal with Richard Nixon. In that case, it wasn't just the original event that caused the downfall, it was the attempt to hide the evidence. Judge Howell specifically mentioned obstruction. This is exactly what happened with Nixon. He used his power to stop investigators from seeing the truth. History shows us that when a leader uses the government to protect themselves from personal legal trouble, the system eventually reacts to push them out. We can also compare this to how other countries handle high-level corruption. In many places, large banks, like Deutsche Bank, have been caught helping powerful people hide money. Usually, the bank pays a fine and the person loses their job. However, because this involves the President of the United States, the consequences are much higher. It's not just a business failure, it's a crisis for the entire government. The difference here is the connection to the Epstein network. Most political scandals are about money or power. This scandal involves a network that is widely hated by the public because of its history with coercive exploitation networks. This makes it toxic. In the past, politicians could survive a money scandal by saying it was just business. You cannot say that when the names involved are linked to such dark activities. This is why this situation is much more dangerous for Trump than his previous legal battles. The short-term consequences of this are going to be very fast and very loud. We are likely to see an impeachment vote within just a few days. Because the evidence includes official flight logs and bank records, it is very hard for members of Congress to ignore it. Even people who usually support the president will find it difficult to stand by him. They have to think about their own careers and how voters will feel about the Epstein connection. In the long term, this could lead to the total collapse of the current political structure. If the president is removed or resigns, the vice president will take over, but the shadow of this scandal will remain over the entire party. It could lead to a cleansing of the government, where many people who were involved in these secret networks are investigated. We should also expect to see massive legal action against the banks involved. Deutsche Bank could face fines so large, they might struggle to stay in business. There will be a push for new laws to make sure banks can't ignore red flags just to make a profit from powerful clients. As for what happens next, logic suggests that Trump may try to find a way out before he is officially removed. This often happens in history when the evidence becomes undeniable. He might claim health issues or say he is stepping down for the good of the country. This allows him to keep some dignity rather than being forced out by a vote. If he does not leave voluntarily, the trial in the Senate will be one of the biggest events in history. It will be the first time the public gets to see all the evidence of these hidden networks in a formal setting. No matter how it ends, the presidency will be changed. The era of being able to hide these kinds of past connections is likely over, because technology and the courts are making it easier to follow the money. The final result will probably be years of court cases. Once he is no longer president, he will not have the same protections. Prosecutors will likely use these same bank records to bring criminal charges. This means the 27-second freeze we saw on TV wasn't just a pause in a speech, it was likely the beginning of the end for his public life.